If I asked you a question right now, a very direct one, would you have the courage to answer honestly? What would you do if Jesus appeared before you and showed you exactly what is about to come to America? Many say they are prepared. Many claim to have enough faith, enough strength, enough understanding. But when the veil truly tears, when the spiritual world opens without warning, everything you thought you understood simply crumbles. And I need you to stay with me, because what I am about to tell you is not a story, not a metaphor, not a dramatization. It is a vision, a real vision, a revelation, a spiritual warning for anyone who still feels this invisible tension growing in the air. My name is Sarah, and before all this happened, I was just like you, trying to understand this silent unease spreading across the country, trying to explain why the atmosphere feels heavier every day, why the streets feel different, why the country seems to hold its breath. I had no idea that this was leading me to a single night. A night when I broke down in prayer, not out of fear, but out of desperation for clarity. I had been feeling this spiritual pressure for weeks, as if something was moving toward America, something no one could see, but that everyone could, to feel. And in that moment, alone in the silence, I whispered the only thing I could. Lord, show me what this is. What happened next didn't seem like imagination, emotion, or tiredness. It seemed like a divine interruption. A presence entered the room, strong, irresistible, impossible to ignore. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it means when heaven draws near. Something was coming, something serious, something that would change everything. I need to tell you exactly how it all began, because none of this happened suddenly. In fact, before the vision, there were days, maybe weeks, when something inside me felt like it was silently breaking apart. I couldn't sleep properly. The nights became long, restless, as if there was an urgency breathing deep in my chest. I woke up several times with the feeling that something was calling me, pulling me to a place I didn't understand. And the more I tried to ignore it, the stronger it became. It was as if the very air inside the house was saying, "Pay attention." I remember one night in particular, one of those nights when the silence feels so heavy, it hurts. The house was completely still. No wind, no sounds, nothing to justify the tightness growing inside me. I paced back and forth, trying to calm myself, trying to convince my heart that it was just anxiety, just tiredness, just another difficult night. But it wasn't. I felt like I was about to cross an invisible boundary, like something was approaching, something I couldn't avoid. It was in the early hours of that morning that I collapsed, literally. My knees simply gave way, and I fell to the ground, not from physical weakness, but because my spirit could no longer fight against that feeling of urgency. I began to pray, not a beautiful, organized prayer, one of those that seem rehearsed. It was a broken, desperate, honest prayer. I asked for answers. I asked for direction. I asked to understand what was happening to me and to the country. I asked for peace, but deep down, I knew that peace wasn't what would come first. That room, lit only by the dim streetlights, seemed larger than it actually was. A profound silence enveloped everything. Even without wind, I felt the air change, as if the atmosphere had been displaced by something unseen, but real enough to make my whole body tremble. And it was right there, on that cold floor, with my face wet with tears and my voice faltering, that everything began to happen. First, the light. Not a physical light, but a subtle change, as if the environment had gained its own glow. The air, previously heavy, became dense in another way, as if filled with something sacred. My arms tingled uncontrollably. My breath became shallow. It was as if someone had entered the room without opening the door. Someone whose mere movement changed the composition of the air. I felt the presence before seeing anything, a firm yet sweet presence, strong yet full of compassion. The kind of presence that makes you want to cry and at the same time makes you know you are exactly where you should be. My eyes began to burn for no reason. My heart raced, not from fear, but from recognition. Suddenly, everything I believed, everything I feared, everything I sought, seemed to be answered in that instant. And then he appeared, not as an intense light, not as a distant figure, not as a symbolic or abstract vision. He appeared in a real way, close, alive. Jesus was before me, and there was no denying his presence. It was as if every cell in my body knew even before my mind understood. The entire room seemed to breathe with him. The silence around us was not empty. It was his silence, laden with meaning. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could only feel his gaze. I never found enough words to describe it. It was a gaze capable of piercing not only who you are today, but everything you have ever been and everything you will ever be. It was a gaze of absolute authority, but at the same time so full of tenderness that my heart felt like it was breaking. He watched me as one who knows what is to come and yet remains by my side. I realized then in that look that he hadn't come just to comfort me. He had come to show me something serious, something big, something that was about to reach America in a way that no one is prepared to see. And even before hearing a single word, I already knew. What was to come wasn't symbolic. It wasn't metaphorical. It wasn't a vague warning. It was real. Then he spoke. A short, firm sentence, laden with meaning. A sentence that seemed to transcend time and pierce my soul. This sentence was not merely the beginning of a message. It was the trigger that opened the vision. It was as if a thin veil had been torn from the world, revealing something that had always been there, but which was not allowed to ordinary eyes. And so, the vision began. I felt myself being carried away, not in a physical sense, but as if my consciousness was being guided to another place. The room around me began to lose its shape. The walls seemed to move away. The light changed again, as if I were between two worlds. I could feel Jesus beside me, present, constant, while everything around me transformed into something vast, alive, and frighteningly real. And before me, America. But not the America we see today. Not the brightly lit, bustling cities full of routine and normalcy. The America before my eyes seemed burdened, heavy, as if the very air were suffering. I saw large cities, New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, but something was wrong with them. The atmosphere was dense, almost gray, as if a collective shadow hung over the country. People walked quickly, looking around as if they sensed something approaching, but without knowing what it was. It was more than fear. It was anticipation. It was as if the entire nation was holding its breath. And that was just the beginning. The vision began to intensify before my eyes in a way that was impossible to control. I couldn't look away, nor could I ask it to stop. It was as if Jesus were opening a window before me to what was to come, and even if I wanted to close my eyes, my spirit remained fixed on what he was revealing. The atmosphere over America remained heavy, not just heavy, but charged with something that seemed alive, pulsating, as if the nation itself were reacting to an invisible force pressing upon it from all sides. As I watched the cities, something began to change in the sky. First, there were small alterations in color, as if the blue were being replaced by metallic, almost silvery tones. Then came the signs. Lights that didn't behave like stars, movements that didn't seem natural, distortions that made the sky seem restless. It was as if the firmament was trying to get my attention, trying to warn that something was approaching. I felt the wind change, even within my line of sight, as if each gust carried a silent message. and in the background, a sound. Not loud, not defined, but something between a lament and a distant trumpet. It was impossible to ignore. The conflicts began to unfold before my eyes, as if my vision were speeding up to show me various points of the country simultaneously. I saw people arguing, families splitting apart, friends drifting apart, communities breaking apart. But what hurt most wasn't the social conflicts, it was the spiritual crisis behind them. I could feel, almost like a physical weight, the spiritual turmoil that covered the nation. It was as if millions of people were searching for answers at the same time, but finding only emptiness. An emptiness that grew, spread, and seeped everywhere. In one of the most intense moments of this part of the vision, I saw a darkness forming over certain regions. Not a literal darkness, but a spiritual shadow. It fell over entire cities like a heavy fog, making everything more tense, more fragile, more prone to emotional collapse. It's very difficult to explain because it wasn't just something I saw, it was something I felt, as if the shadow also touched me, as if it tried to make me understand what the people within it were feeling. And then, suddenly, something broke. Through within the vision, I saw fire. Not an ordinary fire, not isolated conflagrations. It was a symbolic fire, yet absolutely real. It advanced swiftly, as if propelled by invisible winds, and the fire didn't just destroy, it revealed. Because in the midst of the flames, I saw faces. Faces of people waking up, falling to their knees, crying, raising their hands to the sky, realizing they were at a decisive moment. It was as if the fire burned away all lies, all distractions, all spiritual masks, leaving only the truth exposed before anyone willing to look. And then came the most powerful moment of that part of the vision. A sound, clear and deep, pierced everything. A spiritual trumpet sound. It wasn't a physical sound, but it reverberated so intensely that it seemed to move the entire atmosphere. With that sound, something like a spiritual wave swept across the country. I saw it cross mountains, cities, fields, coastlines, neighborhoods. And that wave revealed hearts. I saw fear. I saw faith. I saw people resisting. I saw people breaking down. I saw chaos, but I also saw rebirth. It was as if the vision was showing the spiritual condition of America with absolute clarity. Nothing hidden, nothing disguised, nothing denied. It was at that moment that Jesus spoke to me again. He was beside me, looking at the vision in the same way I was, but his gaze carried a seriousness I had never seen before. And when he spoke, I felt each word pierce not only the vision, but also my own spirit. It was as if his words were seeds being planted within me, seeds of truth, of warning, of purpose. He told me that what I was seeing wasn't a distant or hypothetical scenario. It was something that was already underway, something that had already begun, silently, without most people realizing it. He said that the divisions I saw weren't just social, they were spiritual, that the chaos wasn't just a result of politics, it was a result of the nation's soul being wounded for decades. He showed me that the root of the problem wasn't in the government, nor in the economy, nor in cultural conflicts. The root was in the spiritual heart of America, a heart that had gradually drifted away from what was true. I will never forget the moment when he said the phrase that, to this day, echoes within me. What's coming is closer than you think. When he said that, something inside me broke. It wasn't ordinary fear. It wasn't emotional alarm. It was a deep, spiritual, undeniable awareness. What is approaching is real, it is great, and it can no longer be ignored. The vision then shifted in tone. Jesus began to show me what was really coming upon America. The main event. Not just one event, but a series of interconnected events, like dominoes falling one after another. I saw internal conflicts growing as if they had a life of their own. I saw divisions deepening to the point of tearing entire communities apart. I saw a spiritual crisis so intense it felt like a dark night, falling upon the soul of the nation. I saw people confused, lost, searching for direction in empty places. Jesus revealed to me that this approaching event is neither an accident nor a punishment. It is a consequence of choices, of carelessness, of straying from the norm. A consequence of a country that has been losing its spiritual essence while believing that everything was fine. The vision was only just beginning, and I knew that what was to come would be even more profound. When the direct revelation ended, I felt something inside me break apart in a way I had never experienced before. It wasn't just a spiritual shock. It was as if the vision had pierced my deepest layers, breaking down old structures, stirring areas of my heart I didn't even know were dormant. The shock wasn't just emotional, it was physical. I felt my body as if it were supporting a weight that didn't belong to it, a weight that came from something much bigger than me. It was the kind of shock that repositions you internally, that forces you to look inward with absolute honesty. My spirit felt both expanded and crushed at the same time. I felt a real fear, not that tormenting, paralyzing fear, but a reverent awe, the kind that awakens, that makes you realize the seriousness of the moment. I trembled, literally trembled, as if the entire vision were vibrating inside me. It was as if each scene Jesus showed had left a trace on my body. Cold hands, heat in my chest, pressure on the back of my neck, tears wanting to fall without me realizing it. I wasn't just seeing, I was participating in something I couldn't explain. But what was most impressive was what came right after the fear, a spiritual courage, a strength that didn't come from within. It was as if Jesus were strengthening my legs from the inside, as if he were placing something invisible in my heart, something that told me, you saw because you needed to see. Now you speak because you need to speak. And this? Courage, gentle yet firm, began to grow like a flame inside me. It was at that point that I understood, with painful clarity, that this calling was not generic, it was personal. I had been marked by that vision. I had been summoned. It wasn't just a profound spiritual experience, it was ascending, a purpose, something that could not be ignored, something that I knew, in the deepest part of my being, I would carry for the rest of my life. And along with that courage came responsibility, immense, heavy, almost overwhelming. Because it wasn't just about me. It was about all those who still didn't see what was coming. It's strange to say, but I felt like I was holding a hot, almost burning message that I needed to deliver before it burned my own hands. I felt the weight of every word Jesus had spoken. I felt the echo of the phrase, "This is closer than you think," reverberating in my stomach, in my chest, in my spirit. During the vision, I had felt that I was being supported. But now, in this transitional phase, it was as if that support was slowly diminishing, preparing my body and consciousness to return. The spiritual light that enveloped me began to lose intensity, but it still shone. The scenes began to dissolve, like golden dust carried away by the wind. The presence of Jesus, which had previously filled everything around me, began to recede in such a gentle, loving way that my tears began to fall uncontrollably. I knew he was still there, but not with the same intensity anymore. His presence was like a hand that still touches, but begins to let go, still transmitting love, but allowing me to return to the physical world. My body began to return to its natural weight. I felt my legs as if they were made of stone, my hands tingling, a tightness in my chest that was half pain and half longing for that indescribable presence. The vision was fading, but the impact remained. When I fully returned to my body, it was almost violent. The ground felt harder. The air felt heavier. The silence of the house, which had previously been an ordinary silence, became a profound silence, as if it were still laden with the last word Jesus spoke. I realized I was crying without noticing. My face was wet, my breathing uneven, my heart racing as if I had run for miles. I was shaking so much that I had to hold onto the edge of the table to avoid falling. My legs were weak, as if they no longer belonged to me. It was like returning from a place where the body had no weight and landing with all the gravity of the world at once. The contrast was so great that it made me feel small in the face of everything I had just witnessed. I looked around and everything seemed the same. The living room curtains, the dim light, the dawn almost over. But I already knew nothing was the same. The world seemed the same, but I was no longer the same person who had knelt hours before. The vision continued to burn within me as if it were a spiritual mark I would carry forever. I could feel the echo of Jesus' presence touching my shoulder, as if he were assuring me that I hadn't imagined anything, that it had all been real. It was in that moment, in that mixture of trembling and clarity, that I knew what I needed to do. It was as if something had been placed inside me, an urgency that would not allow silence. I knew I needed to tell, to share, to bear witness, not to cause fear, but to awaken. Because the responsibility for that message was not only mine, it was also the responsibility of all who were spiritually attentive, ready to listen, ready to awaken before what he truly revealed arrived. I sat on the floor, still trembling, still crying, still trying to understand how I would go on with my life from that moment on. And even lost in that emotional whirlwind, I was absolutely certain of one thing. It hadn't been my imagination. It hadn't been a dream. It hadn't been emotion. It had been an encounter, a warning, a calling. And I knew that, from that point on, nothing would ever be the same again. When everything finally ceased, the intensity, the light, the weight, the presence, I felt the world around me regain movement, as if reality were fitting itself back into place. The same table, the same wall, the same silence of the late morning. But inside me, absolutely everything had changed. I knew I wasn't just returning from a vision, I was returning from a calling. For a few moments, I remained motionless, trying to comprehend the depth of what had just happened. It was as if my body were here, but my spirit was still crossing that border between the visible and the invisible. And as I breathed slowly, I felt something I had never felt so clearly: responsibility. Not the human weight of fear, but the sacred weight of a testimony that cannot be kept hidden. I understood, right there, that Jesus didn't show me what's coming to America so that I would hide, or so that I would remain silent. He showed me because the country is at a spiritual crossroads, and many are still walking as if nothing is happening. And perhaps that's why you're here. Perhaps you too have felt, in recent months, that silent pressure in the air, that feeling that something is changing, that the surface no longer tells the whole story. And that's why I need to tell you something in all sincerity. Do not ignore what your spirit has perceived, because what is approaching is not just political, cultural, or social. It's spiritual. As I tried to gather my thoughts, I remembered that I wasn't the only one going through this. There are other people, scattered across the country, simple, discreet, ordinary people, who have also received revelations, warnings, signs pointing in the same direction. People who have never met each other, but who have been touched by the same movement. And recently I heard one of these accounts, one that gave me deep chills, because it confirmed word for word what I had seen. This is the video that will appear on your screen when this one finishes. It's not mine. It's not about me. It's about another person who, without knowing my experience, described the same feeling in the spirit, the same warning, the same weight coming from the sky. And I truly believe you need to listen. But before I direct you to that testimony, I want to do something brief, something I didn't plan, but that I feel deeply I must do. Praying for you. It doesn't matter if you're watching this video silently, on the couch, at work, or with tears in your eyes. If you feel that something here has touched your heart, then this prayer is for you. Lord Jesus, I am now praying for every person who has heard this message so far. I ask that your Spirit bring discernment, strength, and peace. May all fear be replaced by clarity. May all confusion be replaced by direction. And may every heart awaken to the spiritual time we are living in. Bless, protect, and prepare each person who is listening, and shows them what they need to see in the time and manner that only the Lord knows how to do. Amen. And if this prayer touched your heart, if something within you awakened or confirmed what you already felt, then I want to ask you something simple yet powerful. Write in the comments, "I am awake." This phrase is not just a comment, it's a spiritual statement. It shows that you are not asleep, that you are aware of the time, and it also helps more people find this video. If you're not already subscribed, I warmly invite you to join, subscribe to the channel. Not for numbers, but because this place is becoming a community of people who want to understand what God is doing now, not years from now. And also leave a like, because that helps YouTube deliver this message to those who really need to hear it. Now, before you leave, do this. Click on the video that's appearing on the screen. This is the account of another person who had a recent vision, a view that confirms exactly what I shared here today. Watch. Discerning the right time is crucial. And what did that person see? It connects directly with everything Jesus showed me. What's coming to America is real, and those who are awake will understand.